All right. Hello, I'm Pete Droge. This is the Couch Riffs Podcast. Welcome.
Hey, it's me, your pal, Mike Squires, and the Couch Riffs Podcast. Episode number 286. This episode features my conversation with Pete Droge. Pete, I had never met before last year. I'd done a couple shows with him in the last year as a tech/stage hand. He was a wonderful guy to be around and real good at music and songwriting. I like that about him. But he's equally as cool to just chill with. So I was very much looking forward to this conversation, and it did not disappoint. I learned a lot about him, and he was very honest and vulnerable with sharing himself and his stories. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Pete has a new album, Fade Away Blue, coming August 22nd. That's next Friday if you're counting today. I don't know when it is in terms of when you're listening, but we're talking 2025 here. On the 23rd, the day after the release, he'll be doing an in-store at Easy Street Records in beautiful West Seattle, Washington. I recommend attending that. He's awesome, and the tunes are sweet. You can hear now, before the full album is released, 4 songs from the album. 2 of those we talk about pretty extensively here on the podcast. One is called You Called Me Kid, and the other one is Song for Barbara Ann. And they're autobiographical songs. And they're great tunes, and I really enjoy them. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you're enjoying Couch Riffs Podcast or the events that I have been putting together or the cover songs that I've done in the past, and I hope to be able to find the time and resources to do again in the future, I hope that you will consider supporting us on Patreon. Couch Riffs, patreon.com/couchriffs is where you will find that. There are also, you can subscribe to Patreon for free over there, and the podcast goes up there early. Every once in a while, there's some other stuff that I put up there as well. Another huge way that you can help Couch Riffs is simply by subscribing, whether you are watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or I don't know where else you get these things. You get them all over the damn place. But if you subscribe to it there, it is massively, it's a huge gesture that will require very little energy from you and will help me a lot. So thank you so much if you will please consider that. As always, I encourage you to support creatives, musicians, artists, crafts people who are hand-making chairs, painting portraits on the street, doing whatever. Things that, doing creative things that you don't do, even if you're a creative. It's important to help prop up and propel that energy. So lastly, you know the deal. Remember the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And it's really simple if you just try to not be a dick. Pete, welcome to the Couch Riffs Podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
I feel,
we've spent a little time together, but I feel like I know you really well because you've been in my little earbuds. Right. I've enjoyed the podcast in the past. So I feel like we're longtime friends already. So
well, we have a mutual admiration club then.
Good. Sweet.
I know very little about you. I know you live on Vashon.
Yeah.
I know you are a sweet, sweet songwriter.
Thank you.
And when I listen to your music, it feels like in my limited experience of being around you, it feels like I'm in a room with you. Like the energy of your music feels like your energy, which doesn't always equate with all musicians.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think some of the heaviest, darkest, angriest music, you'll meet the singer and they're just like super chill.
Right.
I remember Brendan O'Brien, the producer, talking about, is it Zach, the singer for Rage Against the Machine? Is that his name? Am I getting that right? Totally cool, chill guy. And then he gets on the mic and it's just like,
Right.
So that is pretty common. I've noticed that over the years. So a lot of heavy musicians are pretty chill in real life. I guess my music and my vibe are sort of, coordinated to some extent at this point. I mean, I had some louder rockin' records in the past.
If you ever want to make a metal record, let me know.
I'll keep that in mind. I can play Paranoid.
That's cool.
So that's good.
You know that one. Did you learn it recently?
No, that goes way back. Yeah. Black Sabbath was huge when I was a kid. Loved that stuff. And my early days, I was just a guitar player. I didn't sing in my first couple bands.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And my first band, I should mention, a significant footnote in rock history. It was called March of Crimes. And that band...
It's a great name.
Yeah, it was a great name. And the M and then a little X for the period, MOC, very punk rock. It was a full-on punk rock band. I was in the very first incarnation of the band. And then I overlapped for a minute with Ben Shepherd of Soundgarden fame. And then I quit. And then Stone Gossard, of course, of Pearl Jam, he sort of came into the band for a minute. And according to an interview that I saw with him, he said he basically did a couple rehearsals and then the band was like, yeah, no thanks. But anyway, the band is sort of distinguished by these two mega rock and roll Hall of Famers having served in the band.
Answers one of the first questions I was going to have because I don't know you. You were clearly from the area.
I was on Bainbridge Island. Right. Yeah, Bainbridge Island. Moved there in 1977 when I was about 8 years old. And the singer of March of Crimes, at the time, he was known as Monkey Seeker.
Say again?
Monkey Seeker.
Monkey Seeker.
Yeah. So Johnny was my neighbor, and we started this little band. And they actually went on to do some cool stuff. Like they were fully in the Seattle punk scene of around, I guess I was in around 84, maybe even 83. But they were playing Guerrilla Gardens in the Metropolis, and they opened for GBH. They made a demo tape that got in the hands of Jello Biafra, who I think may have written a positive review in a fanzine or something. So they were kind of a thing. They never really made a proper record. But I was jealous as hell because I quit the band. Nothing was really happening. We were just playing in the drummer's spare bedroom of his dad's house. That was Steve Nelson, who went on to play with The Accused. Nothing was really happening. It wasn't my speed. This was cranked up, slow verse, super fast chorus kind of punk rock stuff. So yeah, I ditched out of that band. And then once they started doing all that super cool stuff, I was pretty jealous. But anyway, yeah, so that was my first band.
Super duper punk. I didn't really see this coming, but I'm happy to hear this story.
Yeah, and then second band was called 25th Hour, quite literally a garage band. We rehearsed in Brian Fenner's garage over on Bainbridge Island. We opened and closed our one show was actually opening for The Accused, the aforementioned Accused, and Malfunction.
Oh yeah,
yeah, Andy Wood. Andy Wood was at Bainbridge. Yeah, Andy and Regan and his brother Kevin. Yeah, they were Bainbridge guys. And so that was the very first gig for me was opening for them. And we opened the show and closed the show with Love Gun by Kiss, because we opened the show. And then as it turned out, I found out later it was Regan Hagar, of course, drummer for Malfunction, and then Satchel and Brad, and is now partners with Stone Gossard and Loose Groove Records. Regan had missed us playing Love Gun as the opener and wanted to hear it. And so it was heckling us from the crowd, play Love Gun again. And I never knew until years later that was Regan. So yeah, that was the moment where we debated on stage whether or not to play it. I was opposed to the idea of opening and closing with the same song, but then the drums, they fired it off, and there we were off and running. But yeah, so I just played guitar in both of those bands. And then around the time I was 16, that's when I kind of got into more of the singer-songwriter, Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel, all that stuff, and kind of busted out the old acoustic guitar.
What year was that?
That would have been around 85-ish, 86-ish. So I started writing, really super bad, poor singer-songwriter, folky kind of stuff. I had a song called The Mushroom Song that was written while on mushrooms, but, it was sort of this metaphor for the mushroom cloud of,
Sure.
nuclear holocaust,
Do you recall any of the lyrics, and are you brave enough to share them?
The one lyric I remember is, see the mushroom cloud arising, see it burning the horizon.
There you go.
So, and I performed that at the Rolling Bay Presbyterian Church for like a college scholarship audition, and actually won some money to go to college. So I played that and Stairway to Heaven. So there you go.
We were knee deep in Cold War right then.
Yeah, that movie. Remember the movie The Day After? Yeah, I don't remember. I must have been pretty young when that movie came out. It was just super scary. You were like, oh my God, it could happen at any moment.
It scarred the shit out of me.
Yeah, me too. I thought about it way more than I probably should have. And maybe we should be thinking about it now. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think we're out of the weeds.
Yeah, exactly.
It sure seemed like we were for a while.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in a musical house?
Very much so. Yeah. My mom was an elementary school music teacher, and we had a piano in the house and a ukulele that I commandeered when I was 4 years old and started making up little songs. I would just, open strings, no chords, just banging on it. So yeah, 4 years old. There's a cassette in a box somewhere of me singing, "Oh boy, you got to get out of this town." Sort of a little bit of a foreshadowing of my love of the blues. I had another one that was kind of like a Morrison-esque psychedelic poetry. I remember the one line I remember that repeated was, "And the horse's feet were bleeding, and the horse's feet were bleeding." Like at 4 years old, I don't know where that came from. So yeah, got into the ukulele when I was really young. Was encouraged to take piano lessons, I think starting about second grade. That lasted until junior high when the guitar kind of took over. I got a guitar for Christmas, maybe around second grade. Hands weren't quite ready for it. Played it a little bit. Somebody taught me to play Smoke on the Water, just single string version.
Yeah.
Which is funny because people of our generation, I feel like every guitar player I've ever met says that was my first song too, but might have been kind of a thing that was going around. When you teach somebody, teach them Smoke on the Water.
It's one of those riffs that is real simple.
But nobody plays it right.
Of course they don't. Yeah. Absolutely nobody does.
Yeah, he's got some fancy finger work going on in the real deal. But anyway, so yeah, got the, I don't know if they were silk and steel strings or what they were. It was a Lark. It was like a $27 Sears and Roebuck's guitar. Didn't quite get into that until about sixth grade. And that's when I had sort of kicked my Kiss habit. So the Kiss thing, I was really into Kiss in grade school.
Yeah.
And once I started to kind of branch out, first there was kind of, Simon & Garfunkel and Dylan and that stuff. And then I discovered AC/DC and Black Sabbath and Aerosmith and all the good classic rock.
70s rock.
Yeah, all that stuff. So at that point, then the acoustic guitar came out. The piano lessons were kind of a chore, but I stuck with them for a couple of years. And I was just, working out the bar chords on the acoustic guitar, playing along with AC/DC records a lot. I feel like people wouldn't really guess this, but Malcolm Young, huge influence on me. Like when I think about my feel, like Malcolm's rhythm and his pocket is like in my DNA from all those years of just shredding, just shedding to those records.
I think he's an unsung hero
Absolutely.
of rock music.
Totally.
And music
Amazing.
in general.
Yeah. Great right hand.
Was your mom so disappointed when you started playing in a punk rock band, or was she encouraging and just like, I'm glad you're being creative?
Yeah, there was no hostility around it. They were both my parents were just unbelievably supportive at every step. So I was really lucky on that front. So yeah, so where do we leave off? So started writing my own songs. I played my very first paying gig acoustic. I guess this would have been shortly after the 25th Hour gig. I got a gig playing a Slade Gordon fundraiser, which I wouldn't do today, but sure. Republican senator from Washington. And this was like a really fancy affair. And I was just like on a patio with a little crappy PA and my acoustic guitar. And I thought I was being super cool and rebellious by playing Times They Are A-Changin'. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. So anyway, I got paid $10 for that gig and wrecked my truck driving out of the driveway. But so started kind of doing the acoustic thing in high school.
That's a good lesson for a musician early on.
Yeah.
Here's $10, but the gig in the end cost you $180.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, musical home, you asked me. Yeah, I got a little off track there. Super musical. Lots of great music in the house.
Yeah.
We had all the blockbuster records from the 70s. We had James Taylor, Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles. Like I said, Simon and Garfunkel. My dad had a lot of the early 60s Dylan stuff.
Cat Stevens.
We didn't own any Cat Stevens records in the house, but that certainly was something that I discovered on my own and got into.
Yeah.
Lots of music around the house growing up, and really grateful for that. And what a great time in music. I mean, we were lucky.
They really knew how to make a record back then too.
They did. I just heard Foreigner on the radio on the way over here. It sounded incredible on the radio.
Right?
Yeah, the pocket, the groove, the sounds, the voice.
Everything.
Incredible. Yeah.
And the tune.
Oh, yeah. Hot-blooded, baby.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even have to love the band to appreciate the excitement of that recording.
Oh, totally.
Come on.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to feel like this is it for me?
Well, pretty early. Like even in my Kiss days, I like fantasized of, playing the rock shows and doing the rock band thing. I think I do have a memory. Right out of high school, I went to Cornish College of the Arts and studied jazz guitar for a year. And I remember laying in bed just puzzling over, like, how do you do it? Like, what is the path to making it in music? And having no clue whatsoever. At that time, this would have been like 87, like fall of 87. And any of the music that I felt was akin to what I was into, it was older musicians that were already established that were making that. So you would have seen like Dire Straits, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, of course, Dylan, Neil Young, but I didn't really see a lot of people my age kind of making the kind of music, or at least having a lot of like big time success with it. I mean, you had a lot of hair band at the time. What else was happening in the late 80s? I mean, you did see like Tracy Chapman came out, so that was a little bit, kind of a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I just, I knew I wanted to do it, and I was hell bent, and I was serious. I was really disciplined. I worked hard. I definitely, I practiced a lot when I was just a guitar player kid. I was really disciplined. And if not for all the partying, I mean, I definitely did a lot of partying, but outside of the drinking and the drugging, I was pretty disciplined as far as, writing songs and figuring out that whole thing.
What kind of impact did going to Cornish have on you as a musician and B, songwriter?
Songwriter, I would say next to nothing. Musician, I'd say it gave me like a good solid foundation of theory. Like I could understand the number system. Like I know what a minor 2 is, and I know what a diminished chord is, even though I hardly ever use them. But pretty soon the theory like got way above my pay grade and way beyond anything I was ever going to use in my music.
Right.
And I felt like a little bit of an outcast in that situation. I felt like I didn't really find my tribe. There were some kind of jazz snobs kicking around there.
A lot of folks have been through Cornish. Are there any folks that were going at the time you were there that folks would have heard of?
Not that I can think of. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm glad I did it. Like I said, it gave me that foundation of theory, which came in helpful down the road. I could communicate with musicians a little bit about that kind of stuff. And I understood, the diatonic scale and kind of how all that stuff was put together. I learned about modes, even though I only use the Dorian mode and the Mixolydian mode. It's like, what do I need with the Phrygian mode? But I know where it is if I need it, you know.
Sure.
And some of that actually did come in handy in the film scoring work that I did much later. I could get some of those in-between notes in. But yeah, I basically ignored my homework and just came home and wrote 3-chord songs and played pentatonic blues licks, you know.
They are often the most effective.
For me, I mean, I'm still mining that territory all these years later. I feel like, you know, I hear musicians say things like, you know, oh, I have to be, you know, finding something new and breaking new ground, or I gotta, you know, I don't want to repeat myself. I'm like, I'm the opposite. I'm totally cool repeating myself. Like, to me, you know, if I can take, you know, G, C, and D and figure out a way to sort of frame it rhythmically and hang a melody and a lyric that phrases right with that melody over it, that keeps me interested and excited. Yeah, I'm totally content with just the
Malcolm
meat and potatoes.
Agree with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm starting actually now, like I've written a couple songs recently where I'm kind of putting some of what George Harrison used to call the naughty chords, or my producer used to call the talent chords. So I'm getting a little bit of diminished chords in there. I think I've got an augmented thing
Jeff
going.
Angel calls them expensive chords.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, expensive.
He's like, I can't afford those.
Yeah, I'm content with my cowboy chords.
Yeah,
so.
Why not? When was the last time you played like some ripping rock lead guitar?
I play a lot of lead guitar at home, in the privacy of my own home. I have my little looper pedal plugged into my old Tremolux amp, my little piggyback Tremolux amp, and lately especially, I call it blues therapy. I'm like, I get off my computer doing whatever work I'm doing. I'm like, I need some blues therapy. And I sit down with my looper and just noodle away.
Hammer it.
But not any shredding rock leads. I like a real clean tone. I've been really getting into super clean lead tones. And I'm getting into some stuff recently. I know there's great guitar players who do this all the time, but like where you keep one finger in place and then you bend. Like you keep one finger on the B string and then you bend the G string for little almost pedal steel kind of moves.
Double stop stuff.
Getting into some of that. I'm doing a lot of double stop playing, and I've been playing with my fingers for the last several years. And for a long time, it was all acoustic, like 99% acoustic. The only time I picked up an electric guitar would be if I needed it in the studio. So once I got back on electric, I was like, whoa, it's like, this is slippery. Like, it's like, you know, like dancing on ice or something after playing my acoustic. So then I decided I wanted to kind of woodshed back on electric, and I'm getting my touch back, and especially with the finger picking stuff, because I really developed a lot of the finger style technique later in life.
Right.
And it was all sort of acoustic based and more accompanying a vocal kind of patterns. And then when I got like on my 335, where, you know, it's a narrower neck, so the strings are closer together, it was very different to kind of get into that. And so now I'm just really delving into just what fingerstyle can do, like kind of Mark Knopfler kind of chicken picking kind of things.
So you're using the 335 for your blues therapy? I
do. And then I busted out, I made a video the other day and I thought, what guitar do I have that is video ready? And I grabbed my 1966 white SG Special. And it was very video ready. It's very cool.
That's one P90.
It's two P90s, yeah.
Oh, that would be a Junior, right?
Yeah, Junior would have one,
Junior, yeah.
It's a beautiful guitar. Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
You don't see a lot of those.
You don't. Derek St. Hubbins, is that Derek St. Hubbins? Am I getting that right?
Sure.
From Spinal Tap. He had, I don't remember what his model was, different pickguard shape on his. Let's see who else. I'm trying to think. My good friend Peter Stroud, who played in my band and has played on almost all of my records. Dear friend to this day, yeah, and who now plays with Sheryl Crow, of course.
Yeah.
He's got a white SG.
Southern gentleman. True Southern gentleman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Amazing.
What a dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a player.
What a player. Yeah. All of that. Yeah. We used to call him, what did we call him? We called him the, we had a name for him. Because he was such a, he was the, I'm not finding it. But he would welcome everybody into our dressing room and just be so kind. Come on in. What can I get you? You know. I'll think of it later. At 3 a.m., I'll remember the word I'm looking for.
I met him when he was playing with Sarah.
Yeah.
And he was just an absolute welcoming gentleman.
Yeah, a wonderful human being. Yeah. Yeah, he's like a brother. Hi, Peter, if you're watching. I love you.
Okay, so how long were you kicking it around town? And what kind of gigs were you playing? You left Cornish.
Yep, I dropped out of Cornish after 1 year. I went to a year at Shoreline Community College.
Recording?
I did. I basically almost flunked out of the recording class there because it was so early.
Right.
It was like 7:30 in the morning or something. And I was playing, I had a band. Let's see if I can get the timeline here. So kind of during the Cornish time and Shoreline time, I started doing acoustic gigs at coffee shops. And then I formed a band with Sean Mugridge and Mark Boquist. We were a trio called Strayland Street. And a great keyboard player named Dave Ellis joined the band. And then we changed our name to Ramadillo. And most of the gigging I did around Seattle in the early days was with Ramadillo. And we played pretty much every club in town. You know, we started at the small places like the Jewel Box behind the Rendezvous, and we played the Ditto Tavern, and then we got gigs at, the Central, which was, the
Swan.
The sought after. Oh, yeah. In fact, at the Swan on, was it Fat Tuesday or one of these kind of holidays, we broke the bar record at the Swan. We'd packed the Swan. And we broke the bar record. They had one other gig that was like, I forget what it was. It might have been Mardi Gras or something where they had a bigger bar, but we had like the second highest bar ever at the Swan. Yeah, we played there a bunch. We played the Sportsman.
Hall of Fame.
Well, I don't know about that. Maybe we should be. We might start to lobby whoever the powers that be that make those decisions for that to bestow that honor upon us. But yeah, we were a good club band, man. We'd pack them in. We'd headline the Backstage, which was like my favorite club in town. We played the Off Ramp. We played pretty much everywhere.
Was this basically a precursor to your solo material?
Not so much. This was alt country. Okay. Squarely alt country before the term existed. In fact, I'll have to look it up. Peter Blackstock, one of the founders of No Depression magazine, I believe he called us like a proto alt country band. So we were kind of, it was definitely off the beaten path, and especially in those days in Seattle. This was, I think we were gigging around in like 90, 91, maybe into early 92. So there was a lot of G-word music going on, and but we were kind of part of a little micro scene of a handful of bands that were doing more roots-oriented music. But yeah, we did, it was sort of, you might call it boot scooting, a lot of train beats, definitely, blues influence. We did covers of like George Jones and Willie Nelson, just kind of revved up. Yeah, I won't say punk, but like
energetic,
leaning towards kind of a punk attitude.
Spirited.
Yeah, spirited. And, if somebody brought us a tray of shots, there they go. And if they brought them again, sure.
Down the chute.
So there was, there was a little bit of wildness to the whole thing. But it was a cool band, really good, great players.
I commend you for going against the grain in a town that was largely commanded by simple, down-tuned fuzz guitar.
I never felt any draw to do that. I was never pulled towards it. I just kind of knew what I wanted to do. I mean, I loved country music. One thing I didn't mention when I was talking about Dad's record collection, like Waylon and Willie and the Outlaws, all of that stuff was huge in the house. Chris Christopherson. I grew up with that, and was deep into the country thing at that time, and really enjoyed it, and still do. I kind of feel like at some point I'd like to make my Sweethearts of the Rodeo kind of album, and like make like cosmic American music version of country. I'd love to do that.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah. I'll get Peter Stroud to play on it. But so it was, definitely, it got to be a little frustrating at that time because I felt like anybody who owned a Big Muff Pie pedal was getting a record deal.
Right.
And, I had people, this was kind of after the Ramadillo thing ran its course. I kind of played around town, as the Pete Droge band for a while. And had, kind of publishing deals kind of sniff around, but nothing ever really came to fruition. And so it got a little frustrating, because you were seeing all of your friends and peers kind of get swept up into the big time. But my time eventually came. So this kind of dovetails into my break in show business, you could call it. After Pearl Jam got back from their huge success on the first album, I had dinner with Mike McCready, who was a dear friend and supporter of my music, and ex-pizza restaurant co-worker. We sat down and had dinner before a show, and I was explaining to him at that time I had a few different opportunities for people willing to give me money to support my music, but they all had strings attached, and they all felt a little bit off. Like they didn't feel like the right thing. In fact, one of them, I showed the contract to Pearl Jam's manager, Kelly Curtis, and he was like, don't even sign this thing. This is terrible. Right. Even if you did sign it, I don't think it's going to hold water legally. This is total crap. So I explained all that to Mike. And then later that night, we were partying and we were both hammered. And he puts his arm around me and he says, I'm going to give you the money to go in the studio and make a demo. No strings attached. And I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. If in the morning you sober up and you still feel that way, I'll take you up on it. And the next morning, 11 a.m., the phone rang and it was Mike. He's like, I want to do it. He gave me $6,000 to go in the studio. We went up to Bear Creek, a fantastic studio, and cut the demo that he would then eventually pass on to Kelly Curtis, who took me on as a manager, and then shopped it around, started to get label interest. And then this would have been around January of 93. And then by March, we played South by Southwest, and the labels showed up. And on that Monday after South by Southwest, we had multiple offers from majors. And one of the labels interested was American Recordings, Rick Rubin's label. And Brendan O'Brien, the legendary producer, had just acquired signing power there. And Mike had just wrapped up making the Versus record with Brendan and gave the tape to Brendan, and that's who ended up signing me. And I should back up. Stone Gossard, years earlier, like even before the Strayland Street and Ramadillo band, had passed my janky little cassette 4-track demos onto his A&R person, Michael Goldstone, during the Love Bone days, right. And landed me a demo deal with Polygram. So I've had the Pearl Jam guys have been very helpful over the years.
Yeah, those guys are jewels.
They are.
Of the Northwest.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I challenge you to find any benefit, event, show, auction, anything where one, if not the entire organization's name is attached. And they've been so generous to this community. They really have. Yeah. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you a sober person now?
I am.
Yeah, I thought
many years. Yeah.
I thought that you were. Okay, so, but you've already alluded to you were very not sober then.
I was very not sober. Yes, good way to put it. For sure, very not sober.
I don't know anything about you, but it sounds like maybe it plays into some of your story.
It was definitely. I was living it up. I was hitting it hard. Once we got out on tour on the first album, it's funny, you get to this level, we graduated after about 6 months in the van and trailer. We graduated to a tour bus, and then we got on these great opening spots where they actually fulfill your rider, which is crazy.
It's insane.
And so, we had a thing devised where it was like, if it's Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, it's tequila, gin, and whatever. And if it's Wednesday, Friday, it's Jägermeister, vodka, and, bourbon or whatever, So the bus, was just overflowing with alcohol. And so
you were working very hard then.
I made the most of it. I was working hard. It was crazy, It was like, as things started to kind of pick up, there was a lot of dog and pony shows.
Yeah.
A lot of being run around to radio stations and doing interviews and stuff. And after that first album cycle, which was about a year and a half, it was at the end of that I looked in the mirror and I was like, okay, I think I'm done. That would have been 95.
It was that early?
Yeah, 95. Yeah.
Good for you.
December 95.
Sometimes it takes folks a lot longer.
Yeah, I was California sober for some of those years, for a while. But yeah, the alcohol, nowhere near that.
Yeah.
And now I'm fully clean and sober.
Good for you.
So it works for me very much so. I'll never
Let's
look back.
talk about the excitement of record deals. Because
oh my God,
that kind of excitement doesn't really exist anymore. Like, there's still things to get excited about as a musician, but back when we were young men, getting a record deal seemed like everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Striking out on your own kind of became a thing in the 90s, but like if you could get a record deal, everyone did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or
it was,
everyone wanted to do it.
You know, I think there were examples, popping up in the 90s of bands that would do, self-released records and then build a touring base and then kind of graduate to the majors. But pretty much almost everybody, even if they had that going and were having, a lot of success with it, I think of like, for whatever reason, like a band like, I think Dave Matthews Band was an example of that, to where they had a touring thing going. They were doing really, really well. I think, I don't know, fact check me on this. They were selling out, I don't know what size rooms they were playing, but I remember hearing like they sold like 30 or 40,000 records, like independently on their own.
Right.
And this was the thing. But then in those days, then there wasn't as much of a path to go, okay, well, just build on that. You would just then get scooped up. So that was starting to happen in the 90s, I think more certainly than it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
The 80s, I think late 80s, you would see more examples like the bands that you would hear of on the national scale that weren't on majors would have been on sort of major independent labels.
Right.
So that was sort of the path. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the record deal, I remember, when it was looking like it was going to happen. Like I can totally flash back on sitting at Holman's Bar in Portland with my now wife, Elaine Summers. Just like, it's happening. It's, like it wasn't inked yet, but it was looking like we were going to get a deal. And like that, the excitement of that was just incredible.
Were you living in Portland?
I was, yeah, for about 2.5 years. And a year and a half of that, I was actually on the road. So didn't spend a ton of time there. But yeah, when my first album came out, I was living down there.
So was your trip to South by Southwest the furthest you'd been for a gig, or had you done some road work leading up to that?
Just regional stuff up to then. The band Ramadillo, we'd like done Bellingham. We did some Portland stuff, and Vancouver, Washington, but just little one-off things. I filled in on guitar for a band called Little Women, which was fronted by a great singer-songwriter named Jerry Joseph, who's, a great performer and songwriter. So I filled in on guitar, and then I would open the shows acoustic. So that was some of the first real touring that I did, is I jumped in the van with them, and we just did regional stuff. Like we did Montana in a loop, and went down to Northern California in a loop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as far as with my own stuff, yeah, it wasn't until the first album came out that I did any real touring on my own.
And what was that first tour?
The first tour, we piled in a van and trailer, and we went from Portland. We stopped in Des Moines. Actually, no, we stopped in Denver for a street fair. It was like 104 degrees, and we played on the street for families and stuff. And, there was an arts bazaar and all that kind of stuff. And then we stopped in Des Moines for a radio visit, and then we landed in D.C. and began a 7-week residency tour. So what we did, they couldn't get us on a opening spot. So we tried. We almost got the Collective Soul tour, but we didn't get it. And we submitted for a bunch of other tours and didn't get it. We were brand new, so we thought, let's try this thing. And it was pretty novel at the time, the residency tour. So we played DC every Friday, New York at a club called the Fez every Monday, and then we did Philly and Boston. I don't remember what order. And then on the days off, we would plug in other cities in the area. And it proved to be really successful. I always use New York as an example. Like the first time we played there, it's a pretty small club, maybe holds, I don't know, 100, 150, something like that. Mm-hmm. The first time it was like the record company and the waitstaff. There was virtually nobody there. And there was a friend who was a fan in New York who was pretty plugged into the cool kid scene. He made his own handbills and started handing them out. And by the end of the 7-week run, it was packed and turning people away. And it was like the place to be in New York on Monday night. We had, like celebs like, John McEnroe and Nile Rodgers were stopping by. We had Sheryl Crow sit in one night. McCready came down and played with us. I've got a photo on my Substack of McCready sitting in with us at that.
How long did it take for that all to transpired?
That happened over 7 weeks. And it was kind of a slow build.
Was there ever a time when all those people were in the room at one time?
That's a good question. It was all a blur. I don't know. I just remember that the after parties were really fun. It was a super cool bar. So the club was downstairs, and then they had this great sort of Moroccan lounge upstairs.
Right.
And, just had a great time hanging out till the wee hours.
Did McEnroe sit in?
No, he didn't sit in, but I really enjoyed meeting him. Sweet guy. Super cool.
I met him once. I'd like to tell my McEnroe story right now.
Do it. Let's hear it.
I saw Guns N' Roses at the Apollo.
Wow.
And I was sitting with a friend of Duff. We had fancy We're Friends seats.
Yeah.
And this friend is a famous, well-known person in that community. Not necessarily like among the average person walking on the street. But we look over and I'm like, holy shit, that's John McEnroe. And he sees me sitting with this fella, and he walks over, and I think he sees me, and he just sort of assumes that I'm fancy, and I'm not, And he sticks out his hand, and he goes, "Hey, I'm John," and I'm like,
"Yeah."
I said, "Hey, I'm Mike."
Yeah,
and he holds my hand, and he goes, "McEnroe," and I go, "Yeah, no shit."
I grew up in the 70s, baby.
Yeah, shit, dude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Legend.
I know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. McEnroe.
It was leans in, McEnroe. And I'm like, lefty.
Is he? Yeah.
Lefty.
All right.
He has a lefty burst.
Does he really? A real one?
Yeah.
Wow. How rare is that?
I think it's rare as hen's teeth.
Wow. That must be worth $500,000?
500 trillion.
Yeah, that's amazing.
As far as money goes, it
Tennis,
might as well be to me.
Not a bad gig if you can get it.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Your trajectory is just like you're up, 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 and you've got to be pretty excited.
It was super exciting. Yeah. It's funny because this is the mid 90s. My record came out in 94.
Mm-hmm.
The era of the mega, mega platinum record. And like I mentioned before, I was managed by Pearl Jam's management. So I kind of had a skewed view of whatever quote unquote success I was enjoying. We never sold a ton of records. We did get great press. Cool opportunities, by the end of the year of that first tour, we were playing the Jon Stewart show, and then turned the corner and we were on Letterman, and, was surprised, I'd be at the airport looking through Rolling Stone. Hey, I'm in Random Notes. Wow. So all those kind of firsts were happening, which was, very exciting. But at the same time, it all kind of paled in comparison to my peers and some of my friends. And, I think about, I was on American, which was part of Warner, which was part of WEA, and another record that came out like a month from ours was Hootie and the Blowfish. So here's, you see these people and they're selling, 14 million records, it's like, wow. And we had, decent success at radio. Like I've always coined If You Don't Love Me as a minor hit. Although, as I've mentioned that recently, I've had a few people kind of push back and say, it wasn't a minor hit. It was a hit, Pete. I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Sure.
But it's kind of a little bit of both. There was a little bit of like, wow, I can't believe all this is happening. And at the same time, it felt like fairly modest success. I will have to say, I won't shut up about it. The Tom Petty tour, that was huge. That was like a dream come true. And that was just
what year was that?
That was 95. So that was on the first album. It was a Wildflowers tour.
Yeah.
And we were invited on the first leg of the tour. I think that was March of that year. So we were just kind of getting started on the, kind of after turning the corner around the new year. And we did that first leg, and they were like, oh man, we wish we could keep you on the tour, but they had the Jayhawks and Taj Mahal on the second and third leg.
Who the fuck are those guys?
Exactly. And then when they added a fourth and fifth leg, I was super flattered that they invited us back. And so we got to do, about 3 months on that tour. And it was just, the perfect fit, just like one of the crew members told me, like, we've only had one other opening act that's gotten as good of a response as you, and that was Lenny Kravitz, who had big hits on the radio. So I thought that was pretty good. So it was a very great pairing for us. It was really a good audience for us to be in front of. And they were amazing. They were super cool, like just so kind. And I credit a lot of that to our crew, Andy McCullough, who was tour managing, and Martin Fevier, who was doing sound. And
Martin was doing sound.
Yeah, Martin was our house engineer in those days. Did a great job. In fact, we would hear from people like, your sound was better than the Heartbreakers. Right. And I think those are people who like the bass. Martin was, more of a British mentality and kind of pumping the bass. And I think, the Heartbreaker thing is not really about a lot of low end.
Right.
It's more of a guitar forward kind of thing. But we heard a lot of great compliments of Martin's sound. And, we're having, turnaround sound checks pretty quick. He would whip it into shape. So yeah, Martin was there. But anyway, I was going to say that I think, our crew, just, they loved our crew. And I think that made things all go really smoothly. And everybody in the Heartbreakers world was just so kind to us. And in fact, at one point I said to Tom, like, how are you doing it with your vocals? Like, I'm having trouble keeping my voice in shape, and you sound so good every night. And not only did he like turn me on to throat coat tea and taught me some of his vocal warm up stuff, he had his monitor engineer like ring out my monitors for me. I mean, like, how cool is that? So,
well, it's very generous.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, how often do you hear about, the headliner really taking care of the opener in that sort of way?
Yeah, they were great. And I just, I basically started the tour. The whole thing was like cloud nine. It was just a dream, playing those rooms. And, I had a dual amp setup. For part of the tour, I had my Tremolux that I mentioned earlier and a Marshall half stack running together. And the aforementioned Peter Stroud, would play some amazing leads. Or actually on the first leg of the tour, we had Jeff Trott, who also went on to co-write and co-produce a lot of Sheryl Crow's hits. So great lead guitar players in my band. And, they would kind of handle all the lead guitar duty until the second to the last song in the set. I would bust out a lead. And so, I could basically, every trick up my sleeve, I could put into one solo, and I would go back, we would go, and then we'd break it down, get real quiet. And then I would go back to the amps and I would just take both of them and turn them all the way up, and then like go out to the edge of the stage, just go, wow, do this thing.
You can always bust out some ace licks because
I might have busted one or two.
Those guys probably aren't going to lay on the Dress to Kill licks.
Yeah, I might have had a little bit of that in there. But yeah, it was just, what a highlight, to be in these rooms and you do wow, and then you hear the sound just, like a tidal wave across the room, and then the crowd goes, doodle-doo. It was just so fun.
Look at me.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, Emily, Ernie.
So much.
What's that?
I love it so much.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a dream.
There are not very many things that I hold higher. And I don't believe that it's an ego thing, because I grew up watching and idolizing people that were on the stage, and I was like, what a fun job.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that look cool to play loud rock guitar?
Yeah.
Then when you start to do it, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The first time you played an arena, like, what were you playing, sheds with Tom?
We did both. Yeah, we started in arenas. We did some sheds in the summer, and lots of arenas, basketball arenas mostly,
I remember the first time walking on to a full, stage in a full arena and looking out and thinking to myself, holy shit, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to remember what to do, because all of a sudden it looked just like the gatefold of Kiss Alive.
There you go. Yeah. They're holding up the sign, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What an absolute dream.
Yeah, it was a dream. The first night of the Petty Tour, they were working out some technical stuff. They had, it was the Dogs with Wings tour, and they had this gigantic gold German Shepherd with wings that was going to come out and then go over the crowd and come down. There's the disco ball and all this stuff. And they were working that out. So I'm watching our sound check, disappear in front of my eyes as they're trying to work out the bugs of this flying dog. And so no sound check for the first gig at all. And of course, they're all there. Your heroes could be in the wings, like I want to do good. And I remember playing that show and worrying that people up front could see my knees knocking. That's like literally my knees were like shaking. I was that nervous. But we got through it. And it was quite a trip.
And after you have a couple of those shows under your belt, it becomes very comfortable.
I wouldn't say comfortable. I would tend towards perfectionism. And so I was very hard on myself. I had very high standards and, I was tough on myself. So, I'm much more at peace with performing now and much more easygoing about rolling with the unexpected curveballs and all of that.
Right.
But in that time, I was in my 20s and I might have been a bit of a brat. You know what I mean? I was a highly emotional kid,
Idealism had taken over your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I wanted to do good. I wanted to do well enough that I wouldn't get kicked off the ride. So there was a lot of pressure. And you're pretty young and you've got this infrastructure around you of all these people on the payroll and a big record company and all the people that are working for that and a booking agent and all this stuff around you. And I definitely felt pressure. I definitely felt like, it was do or die. So I definitely look back and if I could time travel, I would just go, dude, just relax.
Enjoy
it. I mean, I did enjoy it. I really did. But there was a lot of anxiety and pressure to it all. But that's a framing thing. Is it anxiety or is it excitement? Sort of like, depending on how you define it for yourself, like those butterflies and that's a great thing. You go, that's fuel, So.
What a time.
Yeah.
At the Fleetwood Mac show that I worked and you performed, you wore a jacket.
Yes.
A very special jacket.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah. That was my petticoat.
Yeah.
So, the last night of the tour, Tom presented me with a gift and it was that coat. And it's like, custom made. It's got, little jangles on the sleeves and it's got shoulder pads and little, embroidery kind of stuff on it. Super cool coat. And that was a beautiful gift. He signed it on the inside.
And he had been wearing it the whole tour.
Yeah, I've got some photos of him wearing it. Yeah, pretty cool.
How amazing.
It's really amazing. Yeah, he was a wonderful human being. And we stayed in touch after the tour. Some of my all-time favorite memories are, get to be a fly on the wall in the studio while he was working. Would invite me down to Mike's garage studio,
right,
and watch them work. Got to go to the village and hang out while they were working on the She's the One soundtrack. I got to go to the famous Sound City studio. Like if you watch the Sound City documentary, I think both Tom and Mike reminisce about recording there with Carl Perkins. Well, I was there that night. And I have a picture on my wall that my friend, the filmmaker and photographer Martin Atkins took of us hanging out in the lounge. My favorite memory from that, when I arrived, Tom said, "Hey, Carl, this is Pete." And I shake Carl Perkins' hand and he looks at me and he goes, "You're a picker, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, how could you tell?" And he said, "I could see it in your eyes." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Carl Perkins could see it in my eyes that I'm a picker. Okay, this is amazing." And then, listening to the stories, and that was kind of a cool moment. Because I kind of felt like in my relationship with Tom, there was kind of like, there were these moments like when we're hanging out with Carl where we both kind of, the pedestal kind of got evened out where we were both kind of fanboys. Same thing would happen when we would talk about Dylan. He would share his Dylan stories with me and we'd both sort of dork out. And
what a legend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
A Wilbury.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
right. Yeah. Yeah. One of the greats. For sure. Yeah. That was a joy and super fun. And the producer on that Carl Perkins session was Bob Johnston, legendary producer who, all those early Dylan records and Leonard
ever
Cohen.
Co-write with him?
No. Oh God, no. No, I would love to, but no. I did have Mike Campbell sat in with me one time at a benefit show. That was a highlight. I'll tell you the story that was the most. Oh yeah, amazing guy, and what a player. I mean,
yeah,
the best. I mean, so influential on so many of us. You know, I went to his studio and we ran down the songs, and I remember this is the only time I've ever had a musician do this. He's like, okay, well, let's hear it, and then I played the song. He didn't play a single note the whole time. Like, who does that? You know, he just listened. And then he goes, okay, let's run it down. And then unfolded before us this beautiful arrangement. You know, it had a beginning and a middle and an end. Right. It was just like, oh my God, it was such a lesson. And yeah, we played the Roxy. It was like a benefit. I don't remember what it was for, but that was a highlight.
What a great story.
Yeah.
I've only seen one person do that, and people would be surprised to hear it was Duff.
Is that right?
I watched him listen to a song in the studio. I was nervously sitting in the back. It was Izzy, Slash, and Duff.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, let's hear the song. And he goes, what key is it in?
Yeah.
And he goes, listen to the pushes, because the drums and guitars were there.
Yeah. And
then he, one take, recorded a perfect bass part with pushes.
Yeah.
I think he did one punch, and I had known him for about 2 months.
He's a remarkable musician.
I was stunned.
I think people might kind of go, oh, bass player in a hard rock band, you know, how good is he really?
He's exceptionally a very understated great dude.
Yeah. Great musician.
But, you know, Mike Campbell is somehow he's also, I feel like, underappreciated or unsung.
Yeah. Not by me.
No,
he's very sung.
Yeah. I did see the Dirty Knobs once, and I thought they were phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's cool to see him singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your tour concludes, and then had you been writing songs while you were on the road?
Oh, yeah.
Petty?
Yeah, I was always writing. And what happened is right at the end of that tour, like literally at my last hotel in New Orleans, arrived a VHS tape of a rough cut of a movie called Beautiful Girls. And I had been asked to co-write or to make a demo of a co-write with Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics of the title track for the movie. And so I flew home and we set up in this little rented, furnished corporate apartment, and I hunkered down and co-wrote that song. And then we went into Bad Animals and tracked a demo. Matt Cameron played drums on the demo, which I should find. That would be a gem from my Substack. It'd be cool to find that demo. So yeah, Matt played on it, and we submitted the demo to whoever the powers were, powers that be, whoever they were. I don't know if it was, producers from the studio or if it was, Dave Stewart had the final call, but they liked it. And next thing we knew, we were at Bear Creek again, with Dave Stewart producing. We brought my band, The Sinners, out to play on it.
The demo.
Yeah.
And then the real recording.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The real recording was cool, though. I mean, he's a great producer. I mean, no accident that he's had all the success that he has.
Right.
We did real tape flanging on that record. There's stuff in there. So we cut that, and we did a little bit of underscore instrumental music for the film also on that session. So that was kind of a bridge between Necktie Second and my second album, Find a Door. So that came out whenever, early 96. And then right around the time we were making the second album, that came out. And we did some fun stuff with that. Like we went to New York and played the premiere party, and there was like this MTV special around that. And
your relationship with the American is still happening at this point.
Yeah, still on American. Yep.
It's hard. You hear a lot of people, if you, anything less than even a gold record at that time is not necessarily a failure, but certainly not a success.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, when you think about it by today's standard, it's like, that's insane, right? Who sells 500,000 records now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the perception of my first album was much higher than the reality.
Right.
I think, within the industry and stuff, I think it was viewed as a much bigger record than it actually was in the reality of the numbers. We had really good press. Part of the issue was, I mean, not to throw the distributor under the bus, but I came home like after, we got If You Don't Love Me and the movie Dumb and Dumber. And it had been sort of climbing up the charts on radio before that. And then it was the single on the soundtrack album for the movie. And, so suddenly, the song is featured really prominently in a monster hit movie. And when I came home that December, after like 6 months solid on the road, we had a little P.O. box where, we didn't put the lyrics in the album art, but we said, if you want a copy of the lyrics, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to P.O. Box, blah, blah, blah. And so we got home from the tour and our house sitters had just, piles and piles of these letters. And it was like the scene out of The Shining where it's like all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. And it's like one more page and one more page. It was like, hey, I saw your song in the movie Dumb and Dumber and I went to the record store and they didn't have a copy. Hey, I saw your song in the movie Dumb and Dumber and I went to the record store and they didn't have a copy.
Right.
So I think, that's just the reality of, record stores in those days. Like, if you go to the Music Land or whatever it was at the mall, they carry the top 200,
Sure.
So that was an issue. And then I think, a lot of the sales, just people that loved the song, bought the soundtrack, so the soundtrack went gold. So I've got a gold plaque for that. It's actually, they sent me the gold plaque. It's actually a gold cassette, which is not quite right, but anyway.
It's kind of fun though.
It is kind of fun. Yeah. Now that I think about it, at the time I was kind of like, nobody was doing vinyl in those days. So
right.
I guess it's better than a CD, but anyway, yeah. So, when you talk about that sort of threshold, again, that kind of comes back to what I was talking about. It was like such a blockbuster era,
right?
That, sub gold is like, even gold record like wasn't even considered that much of a success in those days. I mean, It was like people were getting diamond records, like 10 million plus, that was pretty common. So, it was a different time. That's for sure.
Meanwhile, that same year, Pearl Jam released Versus.
Versus would have been before
94?
that. I think Versus might have come out. I want to say Versus
95?
would have been 93 or 94.
Was it?
Well, I don't know. It's all a blur. Somewhere. It was earlier than that. That was their second record.
I feel like when that record came out, it was the highest selling first day sales.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Which isn't like it's insane.
Yeah. It was like 900,000 or 1 million or something in the first week.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. I mean, it was mind boggling to sort of have a front row seat for their success, showing up at the Curtis management office and there's, the little like phone call message. Here's a message from Oprah.
Right.
Wants to talk to Ed.
Right.
What how does that happen? Oprah? A voicemail from Sinead O'Connor. I need to talk to Ed. I think he's in serious danger. Right. Like worried about him sort of, dealing with the success. And she'd kind of been through that herself and, wanted to talk. So there's all this crazy stuff like that happening.
I don't have any experience quite like what you have been through and have had, though I've seen friends, do amazing things while I've been watching and also doing my thing and sort of been trucking along. I feel like as a younger person, it's hard to reconcile being happy for your peers and your friends and whoever else is, whether you like someone's music or not, just seeing people succeed. These days, I'm really happy for just to see people happy and working.
Yeah.
Were you jealous?
That's a good question.
Because you were doing cool shit.
I was doing enough cool shit that I was grateful for sure. Did I want more success? Yes.
Sure.
Did I want more? Well, here's what I wanted. I wanted more of the results of fame and success without too much fame. I would have loved the money. I would have loved the security of having like a touring base that kind of just kept the engine going without the need for tour support. I remember at one point, this would have been 4th of July, 95. So we had done the Petty tour. We had then gone over to Europe for a really successful, amazing tour over there where we did huge festivals and some just slam dunk club shows, which, just an amazing feeling to like be that far from home. And there's a club full of 500 people and they're singing your song and they're giving you 2 encores. It's like, wow, you're doing TV and press and it's all kind of cooking. So we came home from that. And still, I was just, one night Kelly and I were partying and I was just kind of like, I don't know, man, and we had gotten the bus, but, part of the deal was like, with the bus, like we didn't have a hotel budget. So we're all just like living on the bus. And, I was kind of probably whining like, oh, it's like, we're going to need a hotel budget, or whatever, And
no day room or driver room.
We'd get day rooms. We had day rooms, so that was good. I remember him kind of spelling it out. He goes, here's the thing that happens. You're in the van, you want the bus. You get the bus, you want the bus and more hotels. And then you get the hotels, and then you want a better hotel. And then you're in the better hotel, and you want a suite in the better hotel.
And then you come home with no money.
And then, that's true. But then there's like, where else does it go? It goes to, then you want to fly when it's a drive over X amount of hours. Right. And then you want to fly first class. And then you got to fly private. It's like, he's like, Pete, it never ends. Just be grateful and happy for where you are.
Find a comfortable place.
Yeah. And then he kind of put it to me like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want? Really, And I was like, I just want to have a studio in the woods where I can make noise and do my thing. And he's like, okay, great. We'll make it happen. And then he and his wife, Peggy, co-signed on a loan for a house for me. And that's, shortly after that, we bought our house out on Vashon Island.
And that's where you live to this day?
In the same house, yeah.
Good God.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When you were talking about, how generous and amazing Pearl Jam have been, Kelly, same way, just supported so many people in those, with that kind of support. Really, really generous and amazing.
I have never even heard of such a thing from a manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing. So, bought that house and, had kind of janky, crappy gear for a long time. And then, eventually, ended up, putting more of a sizable investment into gear and really focused on, learning to engineer and produce and make records and have a groovy home studio.
There are many, many people living on Vashon now. I suppose there's a finite number of homes. There's probably not been a huge population boom.
Yeah.
More creative folks have moved out there in the last 20 years, yeah?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you were one of the early adopters of Vashon
Lewis
life.
And Clark. Yeah. Yeah, we were early adopters. Danny O'Keefe, amazing singer-songwriter. He's been out there for a really long time. Steve Berlin from Los Lobos lived out there when we moved there. He's since moved on to the Portland area. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've got Chris Ballou and Ian Moore and Rusty Willoughby and Martin is out there, as you mentioned. I'm forgetting some people. Yeah. It's a good spot. No, actually, it's terrible.
Terrible.
You don't want to live there.
Don't even consider it.
The boats are horrible. You'll never get off the island. The grocery store is too expensive. You don't want to live there.
I mean, you grew up on Bainbridge, though, so even though there's a bridge to get over to the peninsula, it's like it wasn't uncommon for you to have to deal with the boat coming to the city.
The boat on Bainbridge, they call them a super ferry. When I was growing up, like if you were on time for the boat, you were on the boat. That's not the case on Vashon.
No
like you can get there for the 12:20 and there may be a line and the boat will fill up and then you miss the boat. So there was never any of that back in the day on Bainbridge. The thing that's really different with Bainbridge is, the boat goes right to downtown.
Right.
So as a kid growing up, that was amazing. So at the point that you're done with, playing in mud puddles in the gravel pit and riding your dirt bike, you can get on a ferry and you're downtown Seattle.
Right.
And we had all kinds of misadventures, at that time. It was fun and exciting and wild. And
it dumps you right in Pioneer Square.
That's right, yeah.
When there was the treacherous viaduct.
Oh, yeah.
And all of its seedy activity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay,
Seattle was pretty seedy back then. Yeah, it was pretty seedy. Belltown, I remember I moved to Portland and we came back a couple of years later and I was like, I didn't recognize Belltown.
Right.
It got pretty fancy in a hurry. So same thing with Ballard. I lived during the Ramadillo time, and a little bit after, I had an apartment down at the end of Ballard Avenue, down past, and I worked on Ballard Avenue, a little sandwich coffee shop, and I used to call it the Street of Broken Dreams. It was rough. Yeah, very different.
It's pretty fancy.
Yeah,
I remember when the only thing to go to Ballard for was the Army Navy surplus store.
There you go.
Now it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Old guy complaints. Moving to Vashon, has it been everything that you thought it would be when you answered that question? What do you want?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful community. The people are amazing. We've been there long enough that we just have so many friends. And, there's a lot of artists on Vashon, a lot of creative people. It's, super rural and beautiful. It's progressive, which works for us. It's hard to find a place with that much space that's as blue politically as it is.
That's good wording.
Yeah.
As rural setting.
Yeah. So, we love it. We've entertained the idea of, moving somewhere that's more affordable. And we just can't think of where we could go to northwestern Nebraska. What would we do out there? So it's really the community and our friends, and also, frankly, our property. We've been in this house since '96, and we've done a lot of work around the property. Planting trees. We have cedar trees that are huge that we planted when they were just little twigs.
Right.
So when we've scattered the ashes of our loved ones under these trees, and so really attached to the land itself. So we're not going anywhere anytime soon. It's a, like I said, terrible place. You would hate it
for sure.
Yeah,
it's so gross.
Yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, it was what I dreamed of. Putting the studio in the house, and I worked a lot as a producer back in the day, and people would call it band camp. They would come out here and we'd feed them healthy food, and we'd work on the record. And then after dinner, we'd take a stroll. I remember one time I had an artist that came out from New York City. And so he woke up in Manhattan that morning. He landed on a flight. We took a walk that afternoon, and we're going down, and there's this long hill. And way at the end of the hill, there's like some weird shape in the middle of the road. And we're like, what is that? And as it gets closer, it was like a group of children and goats. So there were these kids this woman was pulling a wagon down the middle of the street filled with little kids, and then there were goats just like walking with them. I'm like, you woke up in Manhattan and now you're seeing goats walking down the middle of the street.
Right.
So it was really like, a retreat studio for people. And we had a cool arrangement with the youth hostel there. They had covered wagons that you could rent for $10 a night, or if you wanted to go fancy, you could spend $15 and get a teepee. So, artists like that guy from New York, would be sleeping in a teepee and, eating healthy food and working. And, we would, go out in the backyard. I remember one artist that I was working with, he's like, he bought a BB gun. And so we're taking our breaks and we're having BB gun competitions in the backyard,
right.
So that kind of rural, nature studio vibe. I really like it. And, I remember when we were looking for a house, I told the realtor, I was like, here's the thing. I want to play my drums at 3 a.m. and not hear about it. And then he'd show me a house and there'd be like the neighbor, like right there. I go, if I'm playing my drums at 3 a.m., they're not going to like it, And eventually we found the spot that we're in now. It's really secluded and private. And yeah, I love it.
Are you still doing any work as a producer?
No, not at this point. I have been working as co-producer, kind of an over-credited co-producer for Chris Ballou.
Oh.
Yeah, so Chris, when he kind of buttoned up his wildly successful, prolific run with Casper Baby Pants, turned his attention to making solo records under his own name for the very first time in his entire life.
It's very beautiful psychedelic pop.
It's great. Yeah. So when he started doing that, I was involved more so in the beginning, kind of helping him kind of find his way, kind of find his voice, and just giving him, it didn't have any sort of shoulder to shoulder, on the floor working together time, but he would just send me stuff.
Yeah.
And I would listen, and, we kind of talked through that and kind of found his path. And then as the records, kept moving forward, all except for the latest record, I wasn't able to be involved in just because I'm so busy with everything with my new record. So I had to pass on that, which kind of broke my heart. But every other record, which is a bunch, I think 5.
He's
he's cranking them out like every 6 months, I think. And so my role is he sends me the record, and then I kind of oversee the mixing and the mastering. So I listen, and I have a little spreadsheet, and I go through, and I'll be like, oh, there's something blooming, around 150 in the low mids. There's some smear between your bass and whatever, or like, oh, your kick drum is really moving too much air, or the tambourine hurts my ears. Like a lot of sonic feedback. Occasionally it's more sort of arrangement wise, but he's so good.
He's
insanely talented. Yeah, he's great.
And as a stage, he belongs on stage. To me, it's a detriment to the world that he is not presenting himself more on
maybe he'll
stage.
get back to it. Maybe he'll get back. But yeah, so that's been super fulfilling. And that, I haven't mentioned my fatigue issues I'll have 10 years with chronic fatigue in September. And so that's been a big challenge. I tried to kind of work through it for the first couple of years. And by 2017, I was like, okay, I just have to basically kind of semi-retire. And so I did. And there were several years in there that were, debilitating fatigue, to where I really had to put my career on hold. And all I did during that time was I just focused on songwriting. It was like the only thing that I could muster the energy to do. And so during those fatigue years, that's when Chris and I worked together. And that was great because all I had to do was sit and listen to music and make some notes in my own time, and then get on the phone with him and kind of talk it through. So that was really great to have that creative outlet, and I love collaborating.
Low pressure.
Yeah, super low pressure and just fun because I'm a bona fide fan of what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it was exciting and fun. So yeah, that's the only real production role I've been in lately. I'm going to see this record through and kind of do everything I can to get the word out about this record. And, kind of keep my recording artist hat on for the foreseeable future. But I do kind of want to scratch that itch and get back in that role. I really love producing.
Did you record your new record at your home studio?
I recorded my parts in my studio. So this was also sort of, a result of the fatigue issues. Like I wasn't in a position to book a studio and, work for 10 hours like you do.
Right.
So I actually started making demos that I secretly hoped would be the basic tracks. So I kind of had a little system down where I would finish a song. And then the first time it happened, I had a habit of when I would finish a song, I would just sit down in front of a couple mics and just play it one time through. That's it. Maybe a couple times. And that's the song Skeleton Crew that we released an acoustic version of that around 2020 in March when the COVID thing happened to raise money for Vashon Youth and Family Services. And then as I was starting to put down more of the new songs, I kind of got a little bit more serious about making these demos that I secretly hoped to be the record. And so I would, really work to go, okay, let's make sure we're in the right key. Let's make sure we get the right tempo, and let's get a little beatbox to kind of keep me in time so that a drummer will have an easier time playing along with it. There's one song on the album, Gypsy Rose, that was one of these ones that I just plopped down and did the demo of. So there's no click track on that. But the rest of them, I do a little beatbox. And I heard an interview with Lucas Nelson, and he was talking about the method that they use in the studio. He said, it's the same as my dad's always done. You do 3 takes, and if you don't have it by 3, you move on. And I thought, oh, that's cool. You come back to it later. If you don't get it in 3, you're not going to get it. Like, don't labor over it. And so that was kind of my philosophy with these, these demos, is I would do 3 tracks of whatever it was. And I had a system because I didn't want to wrestle with the vocal bleed on the acoustic and vice versa, partly out of just the ability to really hone in on the sound and really dial it in, but also because we like to do instrumental mixes for film and TV.
Of course.
So I would just do a scratch with the voice and the guitar on one mic and maybe double track that just so I'm not precious about it and kind of have a little bit of wash. And then I would go in and either do the guitars or the vocal, discrete. And I would just do 3 tracks. And then on this album, I double all the acoustic guitars. So then I would make a new track and then do it 3 more times. And same thing with the vocals. And then I would just do a quick comp. And oftentimes, that was just kind of like, well, this one's pretty good. Oh, that one little spot's a little wonky. Okay. Not a lot of like getting surgical with it.
Right.
And those became the basic tracks for the album. That eventually I partnered with my co-producer, a guy named Paul Bryan, who's best known as Amy Mann's bass player and producer. Okay. He's produced, I think, all of her records since, I want to say 2006. And I've admired those records for a long time. And had originally reached out to him. He was on a list of producers. Like anytime I would hear a record I thought sounded great, who produced this? Who mixed it? And so he wound up on that list. And then I heard a record that he produced and mixed for Susanna Hoffs. And I heard that record and I thought, man, this sounds great. Like everything about it, the mastering, it's not too crushed and it just sounds killer. And I saw his name on it. And at that time, I wasn't really in the market yet for a producer, but I just sent him a fan mail because I had met him years ago. I did a little mini tour, actually riding on the bus with Amy just for a few dates around the Northwest, and had met him and just thought he was a super sweet, cool guy. So I just sent him a fan email at that time. And then the Song for Barbara Ann, at one point I wanted to do a full-on string arrangement. And he's great with string arranging. Like for real. He's like a real arranger, like he knows how to do all that. He could write it down if you needed to. And so I talked to him about that originally and realized that was going to be too rich for my blood. And so then when it came time, when I was kind of like, I think I'm making a record, and I knew I wanted to have a co-producer after self-producing for a while. I didn't even consider anybody else at that point. I just asked him to do it, and he did. And so I would send the tracks down to him. And there's a plug-in that you can put on the mix bus in his studio, and then he can send me an email, and boink, up on my computer comes 24-bit high-res audio with just like a 100 millisecond delay. And I could hear exactly what they were doing in the studio. And pretty much the way we did it is like, I would just let them go. Sure. These are amazing musicians. The drummer was Jay Bellerose, who's just a legendary, amazing, incredible drummer. Lee Pardini played keyboards, who's, was in the band Dawes for a long time and now is out with Chris Stapleton. And then these amazing session players like Gabe Witcher, fiddle player who's played with everybody, Punch Brothers, he was in the Punch Brothers, and then, has played with Paul Simon and Elton John and everybody under the sun. Greg Leese played pedal steel, again, played with like literally everybody. We had guitar by Rusty Anderson, Paul McCartney's guitar player on one song. So these are like incredible players. And I would just kind of like go, okay, I'm just going to be like a blind fly on the wall. I'm just going to be listening to what's going on. And then if I have comments, I'll just send a text. And then they would just call and we would talk on the phone. And so that could be, whatever it is. Like, hey, there's like I'm going to the 9 here on the guitar. It might be nice to follow that on the piano. Just little things that they weren't picking up on. And it worked out incredibly well. I'm just so happy with how the record turned out.
Do you think that you would have 30 years ago, like as a 30 years younger songwriter making a record, do you think that you could have had that sort of surrender in the process that you must have been able to have through this process?
That's a good question. I think I was blessed in my early life making records to work with Brendan O'Brien. So he was my A&R person at American and also my producer on 3 solo records in the 90s. And then we did a record in 2003, a harmony band with Matthew Sweet and Sean Mullins called The Thorns. Yeah. And so that's 4 records that I produced with him. This brings up an interesting story. When I first met Brendan... Young mind
is a young mind, though. It can
be
very
stubborn. So check this out. So Brendan was interested in signing me and producing the record, and came up to Portland where I was living at the time, and we went to the Baghdad pizza restaurant, the Baghdad theater, and I gave him an earful, man. I was just like, I want my record to be this, and I want it to be that, and I don't want the drum sound to be this, I want it to be that, and da-da-da-da. I was like, just like this, blah, blah, blah. Like really, letting him know I'm not a pushover. I have a vision, and he came out of that meeting and he said to Kelly Curtis, he said, I think maybe Pete wants to produce himself. And then I was like, no, I want you to produce me, and he did. And it was just, what an education. So I think I was early on in a position where I was working with somebody who was immensely talented.
And already proven at that point.
Very successful. I mean, he was just breaking out. Like, he had a very, very illustrious career as an engineer up to that point. I actually just heard, give it away now,
right.
On the radio on the way over here. What a drum sound. Oh my God. Anyway, 57 on the kick drum, kids, by the way, little rock trivia for you.
On the kick.
Yeah. The kick, I believe it's on that song. I know it's somewhere on that record, but yeah, there's a 57 on the kick. A lot of success as an engineer and also as a mixer. But he had just sort of broken out as a producer with the first Stone Temple Pilots record.
Right.
And then, got the gig with Pearl Jam, and that really put him on the map as a producer.
He hasn't really done much since.
Oh, yeah, not much. Springsteen, AC/DC, everybody. Yeah, incredible. So to work with somebody who is that great, I came into it like wanting to be a sponge and wanting to learn. And there was a lot of trust. I really trusted him. And from the very beginning, I was super happy with the results we were getting. In fact, I remember clearly after we cut the first basic track, so this is Southern Track Studio, may it rest in peace, in Atlanta, Georgia. Beautiful George Osberger designed room, classic studio, big room, lots of ISO booths. We cut it live. I had a great band, Greg Williams on drums and Robert Cooper on bass. And we'd been, woodshedding in the garage and getting our thing together. And Elaine Summers was there to support me at the time with harmonies and stuff. And Brendan played guitar on that first track. It's a song called So I Am Over You. And, this is like no click track, 2-inch tape machine, all of the analog gear you could drool over, great mics. The owner of the studio had one of the most impressive mic collections in the world. Like he was a collector. And so just everything you want. And I remember we tracked the first basic, and then we came into the control room, and one of Brendan's gifts is his mixing chops, and he's fast. And so he whips up what he calls a hot mix in like no time at all. So he's behind the big SSL and he's cranking echoes and he's doing EQs and he's hitting the compressor and he's just, just immediately I'm like, this sounds like a record. Like, wow.
And he's a crazy good player.
He's a crazy good player. Yeah, I've been revisiting that record lately because we're doing a double vinyl deluxe reissue that'll come out this fall. And so I've, quality control, listening with the headphones, making sure everything's good. And yeah, he's a remarkable player. I mean, there's some of the guitar work. There's another interesting anecdote. We were doing the guitar solo on a song called 4th of July. And I was out there and I'm playing the guitar and I screwed it up. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, going back. I just never got it all in one take. And, I'm like 25 or whatever at the time, 26 and I think 25. And I got all huffy puffy. Oh, I can't get it right. And Brenda's like, you're good. We got it. And I'm like, and I go up into the lounge to pout. And I don't know how much later, 15 minutes later, he comes up. Come on, Pete. Little smirk on his face. Come down. I got something for you to hear. I'm like, oh, man. He went and overdubbed the guitar. He replaced my tracks. Okay. And then he sits me down and he hits play and there's my guitar comped. I didn't know about comping.
I didn't know about it.
Who knew about comping?
I thought you had to do it.
I did too. And they took, the good parts of each thing and they cut it together. And this, this is back with tape where you had to do it on the patch bay and punch it in, and then fade it in with the fader and all this stuff. And it was brilliant. And if you listen to that solo, like even at the end, it breaks off into like a harmony, it's just like, I was like, oh, and I remember he said to me, he goes, everybody does it, Pete. And I was like, really? Okay. I like this record making. This is fun.
Was there a part of you at first that was like, well, this is cheating? I have to
Not at all.
Yeah. Good for you.
No, not at all. I've got another story about that. Speaking of the Thorns, we were blessed to have Jim Keltner play drums on that record. Wow. And the first stuff we did with him was also with Brendan. We went to Sunset Sound, the legendary studio in Los Angeles. And we did some acoustic versions of the songs. And this was kind of like, we weren't making the record. Brendan was like, well, let's meet in a studio and just get together and kind of see how it goes. And we did some acoustic basic tracks, actually with acoustic guitar and vihuela. And then we did our harmonies and it was sounding really good. And he's like, okay, we're making the record. This is it. Who should we get on drums? And like, we're a harmony band. So it's like 3-part harmony. We're like Jim Keltner, and sure enough, this was like Columbia Records budget. Okay. Yeah, let's get him on the phone. And the next day Jim was there and we called the drum doctor to come, bring a kit in for him and say he knew just the angles and everything for Jim, how to set it up. And Jim walked in, he goes, hey, I'm really glad you guys got vintage Ludwigs in here. That's cool, And we were talking about that room. And, all sorts of legendary records have been made in that room. And we were talking about the Doors. And those records sound amazing. And so he was saying that when he was, back in that time, when the Doors were making their records, is it Bruce Botnick that was the engineer, I think? There was a pair that produced those records. I think Bruce Botnick was the engineer. He said to Bruce, like, hey, man, I'd really like to get that sound that you've been getting on John Densmore's drums on the Doors records. And Bruce said, well, actually, the sound that we're trying to get is your sound. So anyway, I don't know what got me off on that, but
that's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, studios are fun.
You alluded to a reissue that's coming out this fall, but you have a new record also.
I do.
So you have 2 releases coming between now and the end of the year.
Yeah. Fade Away Blue, the new album. There's 4 songs that are out now. We released Fading Fast. I released as a single back in 2023, and then Lonely Mama was released on McCready's little label, Hockey Doctor Records. We did a 7-inch of that, backed with the acoustic version of Skeleton Crew from 2020. And then there's a band version. Are you confused yet? Band version of Skeleton Crew on the new album. And then this year, the lead track on the album is called You Called Me Kid. And we released that as a single in June.
It's a beautiful song.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a song that I wrote for my dad after he passed away. And then when I was playing it live, I would always say, I wrote this for my dad, but I dedicate it to both my parents. I was adopted. And so it's this song of just, love and gratitude for my parents. And then sadly, my mom passed away 3 days before the single came out. And so that was pretty heavy. But I was able to sit at her bedside and kind of do like a finger picky, chilled out version for her in her final days. So that song, it kind of gave the song some extra emotional weight. And then there's the kind of the cornerstones of the album speak to different facets of my adoption experience. So that one deals with that side of the coin. And then the single that we released July 24th is called Song for Barbara Ann. And that was a song that I wrote for my birth mother, who I missed meeting by just months. So when I kind of started to really investigate what all the adoption stuff meant for me back in 2009 and into 2010, I decided I wanted to connect with my birth mother and applied for the birth record with the state of Oregon and got it, and Googled her name and found out that she had just passed away. And so that was really heartbreaking and a really challenging time. But I always want to mention the silver lining is the obituary listed her surviving relatives. My Uncle Rich, who played in bands in the 80s in New York and, cut from the same cloth, like we're just have a lot in common. And he's just 8 years older than me, so he feels like a long lost brother more than a long lost uncle.
Wow.
And we're super tight. He just wrote the most beautiful post on Facebook about Song for Barbara Ann, a song I wrote for his sister. It was really an emotional thing for him about just what a blessing it's been for my family, for me to sort of enter the picture. And my grandmother, she's 98 now. We talk all the time. And, she had just lost my birth mother in July. And then my aunt died on the very day that I applied for the birth record.
Wow.
And so she had just lost 2 daughters within the course of like 5 months. And then 3 weeks later, I showed up. And so, she had pined for me all those years. And so, learning that, because she had known that Barb, my birth mother, had given me up for adoption. So it was a real blessing for her to kind of know that I had a good good upbringing and that I was okay. And so it's been, an incredible healing journey on many, many levels. It's been amazing. So those are kind of the cornerstones of the album.
The lyrics for that song in particular are so bare and honest. When I listen to it, I feel like I kind of, again, knowing nothing about you except for where you live, and that I like your energy, I like being around you, I kind of thought that might be the story. Like almost to the T, which is incredible. Because it's not overtly stated in the lyrics.
Yeah, I think credit where credit is due. That's one of 6 co-writes with my wife and musical partner Elaine Summers, who also executive produced the record. Her influence on me as a writer has been to be less cryptic and less poetic and less vague. So with this new album, being a largely autobiographical album, it made sense to kind of, just keep close to the core and keep it simple and keep it, more direct and just kind of tell the story, So yeah, it is one of those songs where it's just, it's true. Like the second verse, I went to Robin Hill. That's the name of the house, on the old Cheshire farm. The family owned this farm in Cheshire, where lilies grow wild. When I was there, we went up on one of these little all-wheel things, went on a trek into the woods. And as we were coming back out with my grandmother, there were lilies, wild lilies on the side of the road. Okay, so where lilies grow wild. And then that's how I imagine you there, So I have all these thoughts of, what she must have been like as this wild flower child back in the day. And then I saw the empty house. Sure enough, I saw the empty house where you tried to come home, but you didn't stay very long. I guess you kept searching for where you belong. It's just one of these songs where you just kind of say it truthfully. And then, a lot of the work comes in and, getting the melody and the phrasing to hang correctly. So I'm happy to hear that the song, kind of connected with you in that way and that it was understandable. And
really like
you don't have to furrow your brow to kind of figure out what's going on. So yeah, again, that was definitely Elaine's influence. And I think it's easier to do that when you're co-writing because there's more of a dialogue about where you're at, where when I'm writing on my own, I'm more kind of stream of consciousness. I'm just, kind of putting the antenna up and hoping to pick up some vibrations. But we can get more cerebral about, what is this song trying to say, when we're working together.
Do you feel vulnerable with lyrics that are more direct and autobiographical?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I feel enriched and fulfilled by sharing something that feels so deep and real to me. Something I'm almost getting choked up now saying it, but a song that has so much in it emotionally.
Yeah.
To, have the opportunity to share music that touches people deeply and to learn that people are really feeling it. Even with You Call Me Kid and with Song for Barbara Ann, with both those songs coming out, it's been incredibly remarkable, the notes and the comments that I'm getting. And these are like tears of joy here that I'm experiencing because it just, it means the world to me that you can, I heard an interview with Don Was recently where he was saying like, we make music and it makes people feel things, and again, talking about the message that my Uncle Rich shared online, it was so touching and so amazing to know that, my coming into the family was as much of a blessing for him as it has been for me. And then, I have my complaints about social media. But to see the comments that came, and I shared that on my page, to see the comments, people, really touched by that and touched by the song. It's like, okay, all this other bullshit of the music business, 2025 is totally worth it. It's like, it's a beautiful thing that we can do to make music and to put it out in the world. And so, to answer your question, I wouldn't say that I feel overly vulnerable about it. I feel inspired and I feel like, I believe in this record so much that, I'll sort of tolerate all of the hustle that I'm not really that excited to do. It's kind of why years ago I kind of chose to fly more under the radar. It's because I just don't really thrive in the sort of promo machine,
I'm sorry that you weren't able to meet your biological mother.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was emotionally deflating.
It was intense. It was really, really intense. Like, if I had predicted what that would be, I wouldn't have even been able to grasp at all just the immensity of the emotions. And there was a lot coming up at that time because, I was around the time I turned 40, and I was really kind of, digging within and looking at, why am I the way I am? Why have I had these issues with anxiety and depression and substance abuse? Like, what's going on? And through a series of coincidences and then a random computer glitch, a file came up and the date was wrong, and it said 1969. And like in that moment, I just flashed on myself as an infant, and I just went, my adoption, I was adopted. Like, that's probably a thing, right? And I had never really gone there. I'd never really looked into, they talk about adoption trauma and the fact that when you're separated from your birth mother, there's a woman named Nancy Verrier who wrote a book called The Primal Wound. And she basically believes that experience of separation from your birth mother is trauma, and that experience of that trauma at a young age, has a major impact on your development as a child. And so I kind of started to unpack all of that stuff. And, it was intense. There was a lot of stuff was coming up. Like in that morning after that epiphany, like I woke up the next morning and just like when I kind of remembered it, I just immediately started bawling, just like intense. It was just, and then, it was about 3 weeks or so after that I kind of thought, okay, I want to reconnect with my birth mother. And at the time, for whatever reason, I was just fixated on birth mother. I wasn't really thinking broader, like I want to connect with my family. I was just like, I want to connect with my birth mother. And we discovered all these really wild things. Like there've been these few songs over this weekend after, woke up in tears, and then Elaine and I sat in bed all weekend with coffee and just like, as they say, unpacked. And one of the things we put together is like I was so fixated on my work, and like, one of the things that I was kind of like asking myself in this soul searching, in midlife was like, why am I so serious? Like, why do I take my work so seriously? Like if I'm in the studio and my mix sucks, why do I feel like I suck? Why do I have so much of my sense of self tied into my work? Like, what's up with that? Like I have friends who go, oh, the mix didn't work out, on to the next one. But I'm just like, like a pit bull, and just like real roller coaster with all of that kind of, emotional ups and downs of the creative process. And one of the things I discovered was there were these 3 songs that early in my life I had heard that I don't even know how to describe it. The word comes to mind as like cosmic. I had this cosmic connection to these songs. It was Angel of the Morning and Love Is All Around. And what was the third one? I'm blanking. But anyway, and Crimson and Clover.
Sure.
And so we're kind of, wow, that's interesting. And then I kind of started to think like, oh, maybe this is like my connection to my music is like when I was in the womb, like the first sense that you have is hearing, right? You can really hear, like they have all these research where it turns out that infants, when you play them slow tempo music with consonant major key harmony, when you play that for them when they're in the womb, and then you play them for them after they're born, they respond to that music, like they recognize it. So we're like, oh, that's interesting. So maybe this sort of intense feeling that I have, like the music has to have that feeling. It's all about feel for me when I'm working on music. It's got to have that feeling. Like maybe that was me trying to sort of reconnect with that feeling of wholeness that I had in the womb, right? So then we start thinking about these 3 songs and we Google it. They were all hits on the radio during the time that I was in utero. And so then we're like, whoa, maybe that's where those, like, I recognize those songs from that time. So it was, anyway, that whole time was just like,
wild.
It was really wild. And, to get back to your question, yes, it was very intense, very emotional. And so, so there was a lot coming up during that time. And then, by the time the birth record arrived and I realized she was passed, that was just like a knockout blow. It was just super intense. Just
energetically putting yourself out there to seek her out must have been at least a little scary as well.
I think I had more, I wouldn't use the word scary. I think I was very excited for it. I was looking forward to it. I had a lot of expectations, like, what is this going to be like? Was she a musician? I was just kind of hoping she was cool, please be cool, know? And it turned out she was super cool. Like, she was like full on flower child. She was a musician, like first chair violin. She was really into Appalachian music. She grew up in Southern Ohio.
Right.
And also in Illinois, but had lived in Appalachian, Ohio, and had worked for a thing called Wood Thrush, where she went all around in the hills of Appalachia and collected all kinds of, folk stuff, like the weaving and the music and the art. So fascinating woman,
wow.
Really smart. And so, through the process of connecting with my birth family, learned a lot about her. And there's a song on the album, Gypsy Rose, which kind of tells her story around the time that I was born. So.
How do you feel about all of it now that it's not completely in your rearview mirror? You're in touch with your family, your biological family.
It feels very different. In fact, my uncle was asking me, when the video was done and the single Song for Barbara Ann was coming out, it was very emotional for him seeing his sister in the video. And for me, I'm at peace. I don't feel like there was a word, like I mentioned, the Nancy Verrier's work, separation from the birth mother. Like, that's not really the language that I would use now. I feel like I do feel sort of a connection to my birth mother. I feel like I'm sort of a continuation of her life. I don't, it's hard for me to put into words, but there isn't suffering around it now. There isn't like pain and sorrow. I feel okay. And I feel, I've had a lot of time to, so when I kind of talk about, that those issues with kind of sense of self being tied up with career and work, with the chronic fatigue, I had a lot of time to lay in the bathtub and go, well, who am I if I'm not my work? Because I couldn't work,
right.
So I had to grow up a lot. And one thing that I really focused on a lot during the heavy fatigue years was gratitude practice. And Buddhist philosophy became really important to me, and my meditation practice deepened a lot. I got to where I was averaging like 2 hours a day in meditation. I was doing a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga, and, just grew up a lot and, did a lot of therapy too, throughout all this process, and, learned a lot about trauma, and, the birth trauma was not the only trauma that I experienced in my young life. And so did a lot of work around that stuff. I learned about something called EMDR. I don't know if you're familiar with that mode of therapy. Yeah, it's called eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And it's very legit. Anyone who's working around resolving trauma, I can't recommend it high enough. I've never met anybody who's done it that hasn't said some version of it changed my life for the better. And that's most certainly the case with me. It was really, really an incredible form of therapy. I found a great practitioner who works in that mode. It's hard. I don't understand how it works. I don't know that anybody understands how it works. But it's very well researched.
Yeah.
The VA uses it for PTSD. This is not some like kooky off the beaten path kind of stuff. This is very, very mainstream at this point. And what you do, you do eye movements. And sometimes it's a little blinky light thing. In my case, she would use finger movements. And you would sort of reconnect with a traumatic memory, and you would feel into the physicality of, like, she'll ask, where are you feeling it in your body? Oh, I'm tight in my chest. I feel like I can't breathe, or whatever it is. And then you just drop the storyline and you focus on the physicality of it. And then she does these eye movements, and then things happen. You have these, in my case, really emotional outbursts and just really intense responses. And for whatever reason, it's very, very healing. So that was a big part of my journey, and that all kind of happened during the fatigue years. So in a sense, kind of being derailed from my career, I think in a sense was a blessing that I had the time and space to do that work. So
I'm so glad that people are smart.
There are a lot of smart people.
Smart, clever, and they lean into science and exploring ways to fix things in the world and people and all of it.
Yeah.
Because if the world was relying on me, man, you'd still be in the bathtub, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But I'd probably have a good guitar tone at least, right?
I would hope so. I don't think you need my help for that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing all of that very personal stuff with me.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to. That's part of, what I hope for this record is to share more of the story around it.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving me the chance to talk with you.
When will the whole record be released?
August 22nd.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah, soon. And then the Necktie Second reissue, we don't have a firm date totally locked in, but it'll be this fall. Like we're hoping October 10th. And we're booked at the Triple Door with the Jet City All-Stars backing me up. I've been playing a lot of acoustic shows in the recent years. And so this will be like my first like rock band show. Haven't nailed down the full lineup. It'll have to be a surprise, but they don't get their name, the Jet City All-Stars, for nothing. And then that's going to be fun. So that's October 10th.
I have an idea of who might be in that band.
Thumbs word. We'll announce it.
Not because I've talked to any of them, but
it's going to be good. That's right. That's happening. We're doing an in-store at Easy Street on the 23rd, the Saturday right after the album comes out.
Awesome.
Super excited about that. And heading out to the East Coast for a short little tour in September.
Would that be acoustic shows?
Yeah. We do an acoustic duo, Elaine and I. And it's a cool show. It's like, she and I have been singing together for over 30 years. So we've kind of got the harmony thing figured out. And then she brings the ukulele out on a few songs, a little bit of shaker. And then to kind of spice things up, I might kick my looper in occasionally. So I think we got a pretty good thing going with the duo show. It's been going over well, and It's been fun. And for me, after years of not performing, like I didn't play a single regular show between 2006 and 2016, and during that time I did a couple like benefit shows where I do like two songs or whatever, but didn't play a proper show for 10 years. And then I played a show over on Vashon at the Vashon Center for the Arts. And then it was like another 7 years. And we did one other little festival thing in there, but it was like, 7 years till we did another show. And then now we're kind of getting back into playing live. And so there's a definite absence makes the heart grow fonder in both directions. So there's fans, like for those VCA shows, we had a ton of people that like flew from long distances to come to those shows because I hadn't played in so long. And then for me, there's an absence makes the heart grow fonder thing where I'm loving getting out and performing, and some of that perfectionism and stuff that I was talking about before is just gone. I'm just able to be much more present and enjoy just sharing the music and
easier on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's been, the shows have gone, knock wood, they've gone really, really well. Just, they feel amazing. So
at this point in your life and your career, do you foresee going on the road with the full band?
I would love to. It's kind of a financial factor.
Right.
If we'll see. I've got a great booking agent. And, the understanding is like, we're kind of almost starting over. It's like, it's been so long that we're not totally starting from scratch, because I've got fans out there that know me and they're eager to see me and stuff like that. But, I'm certainly not as high up the mountain as I was when I let off, so we're playing, the cool thing is, when I used to drag the rock band around, you're playing, crappy rock clubs or whatever. Like in the singer-songwriter world, there are these great intimate listening rooms. There's killer venues. We just did McCabe's down in LA. Love that place. We're playing like Joe's Pub in New York and the City Winery, Loft in Philly.
Awesome.
So there's this whole circuit of like, and they are listening rooms. Like I was talking to my friend Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket, and he had just done a tour with, I forget the guy's name, who was
They were just here?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. He did a little acoustic, co-headline thing with, I forget the guy's name, from Spin Doctors.
Okay.
And that guy was like,
Chris Barron.
That's right. Ding, ding, ding. What do you win? Should win something for that. And Chris was like, who knew this existed? Like, wow, this is great. Because he does the band thing, but then for this tour, he was playing guitar and singing.
Yeah.
And like people, they all listen. Like, this is amazing, So yeah, there's that circuit out there of these kind of venues. And I think, the hope would be that we get out and we play and warm bodies come out to see us, and we come back and there's more warm bodies. And it would be a dream for me if, a couple tours from now, I could be in a position where I wouldn't have to just hemorrhage cash to bring a band out and not make them work for slave wages. That would be amazing. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
I just think you're great.
Thank you.
From the, I'd heard your name and heard your music, but the first time we were in a room together, I was like, well, this is all right.
Nice. Well, that's, the feeling's mutual. That's why I said at the beginning, like, I feel like I know you.
This is all right with me.
Yeah. So thank you.
I wish you all the very best shit.
Thank you.
The greatest shit.
Thank you.
Sharing your story about, being a seeker and trying to fix the parts of yourself that are broken is an important message that I try to make sure people hear here.
Nice.
If we were all working on making ourselves better, well, then the world would be getting better and better and better instead of, and perhaps it is. But when
I think a lot of people are doing the work.
When we look at the news and when we look at social media, a lot of what we see is not that, and I don't want to be a part of that. And I don't think you do either. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I hope the run on the East Coast goes swimmingly.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah,
I can't wait to hear the rest of the songs. It's
pretty casual routing, We don't
trains?
No trains. Yeah, we're trying to figure out, the travel thing. This is our first. This and the little run we did in Southern California. It's like the first time we've done a DIY tour. All the touring I did was on the major label Teat.
Right.
With tour support and the bus and the crew and all of that. So it's a learning curve, how do you get the merch there and all of that stuff, But yeah, we got through the Southern California dates unscathed.
You got a good merch company?
We have a fulfillment company that we're working with.
Got it.
Yeah. You got a recommendation?
I do.
Who's that?
There is a company called Ink Brigade down in Portland. So they're really good friends of mine, and they do great work. And so they do the manufacturing and the fulfillment and all of that stuff, or I think like they would drop ship to venues for you.
Yeah. That's what the place we're working with, they do that too.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve. We're excited. We're just kind of like, number one, I'm realizing how spoiled I was. I knew how spoiled I was, but I was more spoiled than I knew, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I never took it all for granted, but wow, I had it good. And but we're just, we're a happily married couple, and we're, getting out there on the road and checking into hotels and showing up to sound check and doing our thing. And
no tour manager.
How are you going to
make it?
What's that?
How are you going to do it?
Well, yeah, we'll see. We did it. Yeah, we're advancing the shows. I just got a document from Joe's Pub in New York. I wish every venue did this. They sent me this document that was just everything you needed to know in one place. Who knew? So yeah, we're doing it, and we're excited. We're just treating it like an adventure. I'm hoping to get everywhere once. That's kind of my dream. Like if we could, get to all the different pockets of the U.S. and we're not going out for grueling long runs. I'm not doing that again. Not only because, what's the old saying from that movie? I'm getting too old for this shit. There's that, but there's also just, I'm still dealing with the chronic fatigue thing. And so,
sure.
The 6-week, slugging it out thing is not going to happen. So, little bite-sized pieces, I'd like to just kind of get everywhere, and including, I'm hoping to get over to Europe.
Awesome.
And I'd love to get back to Australia, New Zealand. And so we're looking forward to it. And it feels really good.
I believe it will happen.
Thank you.
I believe it will happen. Are you using a tour book app on your phone? I can recommend one.
Which one?
You. I use My Tour Book because it's free.
Yeah, that's Mike Musburger. Mike Musburger told me about that one. I was looking at Master Tour before that, $75 a month, something like that.
He saw My Tour Book because I put it together for the Duff Tour.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so far we haven't set that up. I do have on my mile-long to-do list, which, who knew that being self-managed and running your own record company would be this much work? It's a lot of work. But my tour book is on that list to kind of look into it. So thank you for the reminder.
Pretty convenient.
It seems like it. And the thing is, it's fluid and it changes.
They should sponsor the podcast.
Yeah, My Tour Book. Yeah, you're watching Couch Riffs, brought to you by My Tour Book.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Pete, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like I know you better now, and I feel closer to you, and that makes me feel better.
We're fast friends. I knew it.
In life.
I knew it when you were in my little earbuds. I'm like, why isn't this guy already my friend? And now we're friends. And I enjoyed meeting you and hanging with you at not only the Smash, but also you were at the Dreaming in Analog as well.
If you ever need a hand in town,
great.
I make myself available to you.
Sweet. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you again. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We're on hugging terms, baby.
That's right.
Thank you.
Let me teach you this one.
What's that?
You go left arm over.
Okay. All right.
Do you feel the difference?
I don't know if I do or not.
Our hearts are aligned.
Oh,
isn't that nice? We all